Girl, stop playing.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of the Girl Stop Playing podcast, where we encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. Now, today is a special episode. I know I say that every week, but y'all, we've been needing some therapy on this show since the start, and we finally have a professional in the building. So without further ado, please welcome this week's guest, the modern therapist, Precious.
Thank you so much for having me.
Avorkliyah.
You got it.
You saw I had to it was like double dutch. I had to really time it to get in there. But you are a licensed clinical psychotherapist. Yes. So we're going to put some respect on her name. We've been given a lot of advice, a lot of opinions, but we have some professional advice that we're going to be getting today. So I'm excited about this conversation.
And granted, we're out here all living life, right? So our perspective, our observations, our experiences are valid.
Thank you.
However, right?
Put your disclaimer out there.
I want to bring the knowledge of human behavior, fill in some of the gaps. You know, I think that so many people live out here just feeling like they're just crazy, like they're just wilding, and there's rhyme and reason to so much of what we're experiencing. So let's bring it full circle so that we can let the folk know that you know what you're talking about, right? And we can give it some context and some theory behind it.
But we're going to get the clinical.
We're going to get the clinical
conversation today. And it's not all around imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome is such a challenge for so many people that we definitely wanted to talk about it, but in a unique way. So we're going to get into that in just a second. But I want to just talk about the stigma around therapy. We got to start there. We've mentioned this a couple times over the past few episodes, but from someone who does this, why do you think there is such a stigma in the Black community specifically around therapy?
I think that, you know, let's just make it human for a second, right? People want to reserve the right to be well, right? We just want to, even if it's like, oh, you just got diagnosed with high blood pressure or diabetes, there's always this resistance where it's just like, no, I'm good. I can figure it out. I got this. We want to reserve the right to be well. We don't want to concede to the idea of having something going on that's impeding on our functionality, right? So that's just on a basic human level. But even beyond that, I think the stigma is so rich because, you know, especially within Black and Brown, the Black and Brown community, we have been stigmatized in so many different kinds of ways, right? We have been labeled and made to feel flawed, right? So we don't want to, you know, just be the initiator of waving this flag and saying, oh yeah, I also have this going on, right? So I feel like there's so much shame and guilt that carries along with it. But then there's just still, even today, 2022, there's a lot of ignorance that's happening, right? We still don't understand that mental illness is not the same thing as mental wellness, right? There is
break that down. Break that down.
So we look at mental health under the scope of illness, right? So
like something's wrong. If
something
we're talking about
is
mental,
wrong.
Gotcha.
We understand the diagnoses, but we don't understand that wellness is just the everyday practices that support your overall emotional state, right? Your overall emotional condition. These are things that we should be attuned to. We should be, you know, practicing certain things. We should be stimulating our wellness, just like we look at nutrition and taking vitamins and exercising. Well, you have to do something to fortify your mental health, right? And I think that when we think about mental health, we think about just illness and the pathology of it all.
So reshifting our perspective on therapy into more of a being proactive. So I'm not waiting until something is wrong, waiting until I'm stressed out, waiting until I can no longer handle it, until I'm on the verge of breakdown, and then I go talk to someone.
Being proactive and also understanding that there's levels to this thing, right? So it's like I can have a moment of, I'm going to use a little bit of jargon. I always tell people, I don't use all that jargon because don't nobody care about that stuff. They just want to know, you know, what do I do about it? But you can have dysthymia, which is like having like a lower grade downcasted feeling, right? And not be depressed, right? And have major depressive disorder, right? You can have bouts of anxiety, right? Because we all do, because we live in the world, right? And not necessarily have a generalized anxiety disorder, right? So I think it's just understanding that there's levels to this stuff. And I think the last thing I'll say about it is we have to stop making it a joke. You know, somebody is having mood shifts and you're bipolar, you know? There's all this humor surrounding around it. So no one wants to feel like a joke either. When they're really going through something difficult.
So you mentioned there's levels to it. Really quickly, what is the difference between a psychotherapist and a psychologist, a psychiatrist?
Okay. This is such an important conversation.
Right?
I'm so glad you asked me that because I always go through a field so people understand. All right. So psychiatrists are physicians.
Okay.
They focus on treating the symptomology with pharmacology, right?
Prescribing pills.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
So what happens is that people seek out a psychiatrist and they get disappointed because they ain't going to sit there and talk to you for an hour.
They're going to write you a prescription.
They're going to say, oh, so what has been going on? I've been losing sleep. I've been really tired. I've been really anxious. Okay, that sounds like this. I'm going to prescribe that. All right? That's it.
It's like literally like a doctor, but for your mind.
It's just a doctor for your mind, right? So that's a psychiatrist.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Now, a psychologist is a therapist that can do research and do lectures.
Okay.
Only difference. Everyone else, there's several different licensures that you can have in our field. So you can be an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker. You can be an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor. Or you can be an LMFT, which is a licensed marriage and family therapist. All of us are governed by the same body. And we all deliver therapy, just from a bit of a different perspective, right? So a social worker might be a little more holistic. A counselor might look just specifically at the client and what they're experiencing. And obviously an LMFT is going to look at the whole family system.
So naturally, if I say, girl, I need a therapist, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a psychologist?
You are talking about either a LCSW, typically, either an LCSW, a LPC, or a psychologist. LMFT will typically be for your couples and your children and your family.
Gotcha. Okay. So for someone who's listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm still on the fence. Like, I feel that we all need to speak with someone. Like, we're all dealing with, especially if we just start breaking down the Black community and the generational traumas that we are holding on to, that we sometimes don't recognize that we're holding on to, that we sometimes are, they're showing up in different ways and we don't know why. But for someone who may still be on the fence and just doesn't feel like, I know you know those people, or maybe you don't, because by the time they come to talk to you, they didn't figure out they need to come talk to you.
I know those people. They show up still ambivalent,
like, I'm good.
Right.
For those people, are there other resources that maybe they should explore or can explore first? Because it is intimidating for a lot of people to take that step and say, I need help. And then to take the next step and actually, start getting the help. So for someone who's not yet at the place where they're willing to let somebody else know their issues, are there any things that you recommend as far as resources for kind of that middle ground? I know I have a problem, but I'm not ready for that yet.
So that's a bit of a tricky question, right? Because I hesitate to put out any blanket suggestions, right?
Okay.
Because your listener might be someone who is in the throes of depression and really needs to probably seek out some type of support. What I will say is that I think that books are a great form of self-reflection, using like mental health guides and so on and so forth. I have my book out, Just Breathe, an affirmation guide. It's available on Amazon. But
we'll link it below.
But resources that can offer you the opportunity to challenge yourself, to question yourself, to probe yourself, and just do this full-on self-exploration will be a good starting point. Now, let me say this. I'm not someone who says that everyone needs therapy. I believe that everyone could benefit from therapy, right? But I'm a realist. I call myself the modern therapist because I'm kind of like the around the way girl type of therapist. I give it to you straight. I'm honest. I'm direct. I tell people that, therapy is not everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay. That's okay. But if it's not therapy, you better be sure that you have identified what your modality is, because everyone needs to get to a point in life where they are looking at their emotional self, right? We're not taught that stuff early on. So at some point we have to get into it. However, by any means necessary, right? So if therapy isn't for you, I hope you have, just a great aptitude for finding the resources and doing the different practices like journaling and affirmation and mindfulness and self-care and so on and so forth.
All that woo-woo stuff.
All the woo-woo.
Find time for the woo-woo stuff.
The woo-woo stuff is so important.
It's crucial.
Because it's really life management, right? I don't know a person who did not arrive at a point where they had to sit down with themselves and say, man, there's a lot going on. I have to figure out just how to do capacity management. We get all filled up. We're going in so many different directions. At some point, we have to figure out what a life practice looks like so that we can do almost like shock absorption. We're getting all these blows and taking all these jabs
and don't even realize it. So after I retired from the classroom, I didn't have health insurance, right? As an entrepreneur, didn't have any health insurance. So I would go once a year and do a full workup, annual exam, all of the tests. And I found a place here in Atlanta that did Eastern medicine and Western medicine. So they did meridian testing. They did all of the things. And so the very first time I did it, the results were shocking to me because the stress test showed how stressed I was. And I walk in there, not feeling stressed. And he's literally showing me the chart, showing me the report, showing me what it says, something that you can't argue with. This is, it's documented. This is what it says. But he's talking to me about the fact that American women, the stress that we are under, that we think is normal.
You want to talk today?
We got to talk today. Because Black women, we do the most. We accept the least, we're running ourselves into the ground, and we are stressed and don't even realize it. So then that stress causes 80-90% of all diseases, ailment, all of the things are caused from this stress that we're not recognizing, that we're not addressing. And so it's a endless, just spiraling out of control. But I say that to say, even if you don't feel stressed, chances are you probably, you are. And you said, we're all dealing with anxiety. Yeah. We're all dealing with the news, the COVID, the this, the that. Man, it's so much that you'll literally,
the first thing I do when a client comes in and I hear their story is I try to reflect back what they just gave to me. I usually say, I want you to witness me experiencing everything you just laid out in front of me. And they come in, they're like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, so you're wondering why you're exhausted. You're wondering why you feel downcasted. You feel anxious, overwhelmed. You feel this inner emptiness or turmoil. You're confused. You're unfulfilled because you just listed a laundry list full of things that you've been through, but you're not qualifying it as something that deserves to make you feel the way that you feel. What I attribute it to is I'm always preaching about keep it moving culture.
Get over it.
Keep it moving. What do you mean? Push through, right? Push through. And the glorification of strong, all right? Man, she's strong. She done been through this, that. She's strong.
I'm a strong Black woman.
I'm a strong. And when we say that, what we're really saying is that I am hardened. I am calloused. I am stone-faced. I am emotionless. I have the ability to completely compartmentalize self, right? We're not just talking about emotions. We're talking about self. I have the ability to completely compartmentalize.
I got you, girl.
Thank you. Compartmentalize self so that I can be present for everything else and everyone else, right? Which is, really debilitating to your spirit. When I worked in acute care hospital setting, right, I saw so many women coming in who were the strong ones of the family and had just reached their point where it was just too much. They had no system of management and it had taken its toll. And it's so sad.
and you will literally run into a wall. And so I think there's even the lady who founded Ariana Huffington, the Huffington Post. She talks about like overworking, hustle, grind to the point where she fell flat on her face, like passed out, her body shut down. But that is what it takes for a lot of people to, to seek help or to say, okay, maybe something is wrong or let me slow down. So these conversations are so important because it's all about being proactive.
Yeah.
So for the people who aren't on the fence, we have like pushed them over and they're now, okay, maybe I need to talk to someone. Where can they go to find a good therapist?
So let me say this. The idea of a good therapist is completely subjective. Okay. You have to have a chemistry with your therapist.
And that's so options. Let me not say a good therapist because it might take you going through a few to get to your good.
I have to say that because people will get discouraged so fast.
It is discouraging though.
It's not for met because, they met with someone.
That person was not for you.
That person wasn't for you. You got to pick your therapist like you pick your good man. Best friend or your man. Facts. So, one of the leading websites for finding a therapist is psychologytoday.com. Of course, we got to shout out our girl Joy, right, with Therapy for Black Girls. But I love those websites. Those are my two main ones that I'm even listed on. I love them. But just Google and all the websites will start to show up. I think that for those of us, I just want to put this out there, that are worried about the financial aspect of it.
That was going to be my next question.
Go call your insurance first.
Okay.
Call your insurance. Get names of people who are on your insurance panel, and then match them against what you see on Google, right? So then, because the insurance panels don't really give you information about these people, right? And you want to get a sense of who they are before you go and do a consultation and all that, this and that. So then go on Google them, and look at their personal websites, look at what they profile on Psychology Today, Therapy for Black Girls, and so on and so forth, and then see if there's a kind of a intrigue there originally, and then go from there.
So for anybody out there that's had an experience with a therapist that has turned you off, I definitely know that like the wrong therapist can be worse than no therapist. So if that's you, take this as a sign. Check out therapyforblackgirls.com, right? Is it .com or is that therapyforblackgirls.com. Check it out. But no excuses. Like before you hit a brick wall, be proactive. And I love that you just mentioned the fact that we do often look at mental health as an illness, like mental illness, when in actuality it really is just about being well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up, because I was going to say there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody in general, even if you don't think that there's something wrong with you, or that you're really at a challenged place in your life. There's nothing wrong with just having this third party person to talk to, because let's be real, not all of us have that person in our lives, right? Our girlfriends all have their own feelings and opinions about what we're going through. Our families want to kind of lecture and judge and this is not. And you need a place where you can just go and unapologetically just like lay it all out on the table, And, I tell my clients that there's so much power in just releasing it. In just releasing it, people will be like, oh, I feel better today. I ain't do nothing I ain't do anything spectacular. You just came in a place where you can be your
safe
truth
space
and speak your truth.
Yep.
That was the only difference.
Yep.
Right. So I think we just need that place. We need that place to go to and release.
An outlet. Yeah. I love it. Okay. So let's get into this talk about imposter syndrome, because I know that you work with a lot of women. I don't know if this is a man thing. I don't know if men deal with imposter syndrome, but my audience is women. So we're going to talk about it from the perspective of women. Define imposter syndrome, first of all, because I do feel like it's one of those terms that's just thrown around and I might think it means something else than what it actually does.
Yeah.
So define it for us.
So imposter syndrome is at the root of your self-worth. It's where you have typically arrived at a place of success, having achieved something that you have been longing to achieve. And when you arrive there, you're having a difficulty really digesting that you deserve to be there. So your time is spent questioning, do I deserve this? Why have I been afforded this opportunity? Do people really value me here? Am I worthy? Am I worthy? Have I earned this? And And it really starts to become a debilitating experience, because you spend so much time in your mind and in your thoughts that it starts to manifest outwardly, right? So now you're not as bold or vocal, and you're really just not relishing and enjoying the moment. I believe that this happens in relationships as well.
Yes.
I feel like I more than believe it happens in relationships. It's not just my belief. I have seen it. I have heard women attest to it and speak to it, both in my practice and in my friendships, where they may finally find that connection, but because we have unresolved identity issues, right? We have been navigating all of these relationships that haven't necessarily been reflective of our worth. We cannot digest or accept that something can be good.
That someone good can want us.
Someone good can want us, right? So then we spend time questioning, you like me for real? Why you like me for real?
Well, if you really like me, then.
And you know what we do next? We start testing. We start creating obstacles and challenges for them so that they can prove it. And then we wonder.
And then all you're doing is just
pushing them away.
Yep.
I saw a meme, I think like yesterday, don't push me away and then wonder where I went.
Out the door that you closed behind me.
Like, because someone can love you utterly and completely and totally, but they have to self-preserve at the end of the day. It's hard to love someone who
doesn't want to be loved.
Is rejecting.
Yes,
what
rejecting
it looks
your
like
love.
on their end is total and utter rejection. Yeah.
So I have never heard it presented in that way, but I personally have experienced, like, well, wait a minute. Something's got to be. Hold on, brother. I'm side-eyeing you.
Where the shoe? Where it's like
drop
too
at?
Good to be true.
Yeah, it's too good to be true, because we're so accustomed to it not being that good. Like it not working out.
Right.
And so I know for sure, and I know, it's exactly what you're saying, that this can literally sabotage your relationships the same way that it does in business. And that's how we often talk about it. Like, you're going to a new place in your career, or you're starting a new business, especially like coaches. Why would anybody pay me to do this? Who do I think I am to charge X, Y, and Z?
Entrepreneurs in general
deal with it on a daily.
Oh my gosh, do you remember the first time you had to invoice someone or tell them how much you cost? And,
Listen, still, as my prices go up, it's still like, well, wait a minute. What's their response going to be? Are they really going to, even if they say, okay, are they really going to pay the, are they, so those thoughts I don't think they're ever going to go away. But I think in being able to recognize them and reflect on the root, especially when it comes to relationship, because ladies, we don't have all this time to waste. So if you are blessed with something good and then you ruin it, I don't know anything worse than getting what you pray for and then you ruin it because you weren't prepared for it.
And I feel like some people might say, well, how do you know it's imposter syndrome and not that you actually have something to be concerned about in the relationship, right? And I'll tell you all what I tell my clients: rely on the data. All you have is real-time data. What do you see, taste, hear, smell, feel, right? If it isn't in the data, stop driving yourself crazy looking for it, right? Until new data presents itself, believe whatever there is in front of you. I think we spend so much time
creating data.
And that's the other thing. Choose your perspective, right? We choose our perspective every day. Choose the one that serves you.
So do you think therapy should be a prerequisite for relationship? Because we talk about premarital counseling. That's a known thing. We're about to get married. Let's go to therapy. But why are we waiting until we've decided that we're about to get married to go to therapy? What's your opinion on that?
So a number of years ago, Jada Pinkett Smith did a IG, and she talked about falling in love with someone who is invested in self-mastery. And I remember that post. It hit me, and I'm like, this is it. This is it. And I remember reposting it, and I've brought it up in sessions and to many people that we have to align ourselves with people who are invested in self-exploration and personal development, right? Because that, I think, is what transcends time. We are never one thing always, right? I always say that we will greet ourselves several times over, right? Across our lifespan, right?
Say that again. Say that again for the people.
We will greet ourselves several times over across our lifespans because we are forever evolving, right? And I think that when we're looking to connect and attach and move along our respective lifespans together, we have to both be invested in self-exploration. The moment self-exploration is the moment that you greet yourself again and say, hey, you've changed, you've grown, something's different. Let me learn you a little bit. Right? And then personal development is now, how do I wrap myself in my new self, right? How do I wrap my lifestyle and how I manage things around what I've learned about myself? If two people are doing that alongside one another, I think they do really well, right? But it's the people who are like resistant. I don't need this. I don't need this. I think that is what we have to look at in relationships. So I wouldn't necessarily say that therapy has to be a prerequisite as much as whatever mechanisms they have for personal exploration and development are in place. Something is in place, right? Gotcha. I think that therapy is great. Again, I think all of us benefit from it, but not necessarily all of us need it. And the reason why not all of us need it is because some of us did develop in a conditioning that allowed us to have certain practices that moves us forward, whereas some of us were stifled by trauma and so on and so forth, and we have to go figure some of that stuff out.
And that is where I think a lot of challenges come in relationship. When you have not figured yourself out, then you attach yourself to someone who has not figured themselves out, and then y'all are butting heads trying to figure yourself out, him out, the togetherness out.
And all the while just projecting onto one another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're in that situation where maybe you've decided, okay, I'm into self-exploration, I'm into personal development, I've gotten my therapist, I'm doing the work, and then I meet this great guy who is a great guy, but he's not there yet. How do you have the tough conversation around, I think you might be dealing with something that, may end up hindering this relationship?
Ooh, child.
That's a tough conversation.
Girl, because I be struggling with it too. And I'm the therapist. So, I think courageous conversations are always going to feel like courageous conversations. I think we get held up in the how and the when, right? And then the how and the when just become a reason to avoid it, or delay it.
Waiting for the right time and the right thing to say.
There's never actually a right time, because that would suggest that there's going to be something in you that's going to determine how that person reacts. I always say that people come pre-programmed. Whatever's in them is what's in them. They're going to react to it however it's in them to react to it. And a lot of times we will come out of courageous conversations feeling injured or feeling like we failed something because of how that person reacted. But I would say that, you can be exceptional, but you're not that grand, right? You're not that grand to override someone's conditioning so that they can be whatever you need them to be in that moment, right? So again, they're going to respond according to however they're pre-programmed. So when you go into a courageous conversation, go to deliver, not to receive, right? So go with full intention on what you have to say, right? And knowing that you will have left everything that was on your chest there on the table. Whatever they do with it after that point is what's according to who they are, right?
So is your advice the same with friends? Because we are having all of these, I say we're having these conversations, but I don't really feel like we having these conversations. I feel like we're posting about mental health. We're posting about it, right?
Come on.
But I don't know that I personally know how to deal with a friend who might be seriously going through something. Like, how do you have those The same type of conversation, I guess, with a man. How do you, is your answer the same? Like, go to deliver and not necessarily like how they take it is not your problem. You just need to make sure you're delivering.
So I think it's a little different with friends, especially like female relationships, right? Because we tend to be a lot more transparent and open, like with our girlfriends.
Girl, you need to go talk to somebody.
But I am more likely to do a lot of exploration, especially because I'm a therapist. So like my friends know, they're like, I'm talking to my girlfriend, not my therapist friend right now, so I try not to be a therapist in every moment, you know? So usually I will say, hey, I'm here. I'm always going to leave the door open. I'm here. What's going on? It's okay. My line all the time is, it's okay not to be okay. I think that is the greatest support you can ever lend to someone. It's okay not to be okay. And I'm going to be not okay right here with you, right? So I think it's just being present with them and not forcing them, but letting them know, hey, this might work, that might work. What do we want to do, right? Because I'm in this with you. I'm a resource. I'm a support.
And then the check on your strong friends side of things. If you are the strong friend, who, like, is that a thing?
Yeah, so I am the strong friend.
Right.
I imagine you are the strong friend too, right? So I think that I love that we've been talking about checking on the strong friend because it is both parties' responsibility. The thing about being the strong friend, and I've had to confront myself about this too, is that we don't give ourselves a break from being the strong friend, right? Because being strong, we talked earlier about the glorification of strong, right? And it's something that you are labeled with at some point in your life, but then it becomes so much of your identity, but then eventually becomes a cage because the strong friend doesn't really get to have issues, doesn't really get to have problems, doesn't really get to be vulnerable, doesn't really get to say, hey, I need, or I want, or can you, we don't really feel like we have the liberty or the luxury to be.
Because you're supposed to have it all together.
State. We're supposed to have it all together. We're everybody else's confidant or resource, right? But I think we have to be courageous enough to be vulnerable enough so that people recognize that we have needs too. We really do contribute to each dynamic that we create, right? I always say that there's three parties to every relationship. It's the one person, the other person is the dynamic in between. The dynamic has been formed by contributions from both parties, right? So however the dynamic is playing out has some kind of contribution from your end as well, right? So I think the thing that we can always control is what comes from us, what flows from us. So we have to, be courageous enough and take the risk to be vulnerable and recognize people's skill sets. We get slighted because we might try to be vulnerable and then someone's like, oh, I'm sorry. They just don't give you what you give them, right? It's just like, girl, when you were going through what you was going through, I was in the trenches with you. You talking about stuff, oh, I'm sorry. And you feel so let down in those moments. But the thing is that person probably didn't intend to let you down. They just aren't the friend that possesses that skill set. You probably connected to them because you were the person who possessed the skill set that they needed.
That's a thing. Because friends, hello friends, it's me. I'm the friend that don't possess the skill set.
Yeah.
I'm that friend.
Yeah.
I am sorry, friends. Wow. It's like your love language.
Yeah.
It literally is how I express my love, how I receive it. Wow. That's deep.
Matters of emotions are all skill sets too. And I think that we struggle because we don't consider them skill sets. We consider them personal. That's just something I have or I don't have it. It's not something I can develop and strengthen. Right. Or we feel like that person didn't give me what I needed because they didn't think I deserved it or that I mattered enough or that I was important enough. Not that they haven't developed that skill set yet. It's literally not in them to give you what you need in that moment because their life journey didn't afford them a moment in time or a lesson.
It's literally the 4 agreements, not taking anything personally. It's very hard to do, but if you can master that, it's like
It's as simple as it is complex. These things we're talking about, none of it is easy, right? It's all challenging, but challenging doesn't mean impossible. So it's really just about setting an intention, having conviction behind it, and developing a new skill set.
So you mentioned earlier, I think it was before we were on air, about the fact that you work with a lot of women who have like the
superwoman syndrome. Yes.
And I think that's why we're so stressed out. But I don't think we're choosing to have that. I think it's like what we naturally kind of take on. Like you said, we're just used to be the strong person. We're used to, carrying all of the weight and balancing all of the things. Yeah. What is your advice for a woman that's watching this that may be on the brink of breakdown? Maybe she knows it, maybe she doesn't, but she's just carrying too much.
So what you said is true, right? It isn't something that, we want to be. But so it's part learned behavior. It's part role identity. But it's part core belief, I'm only as good as what I could do for people.
Ooh.
Right? So we can't travel back in time to... we can't travel back in time to change our conditioning, right? And role identity can be reshaped.
Pause. You see it's still sitting here, right? I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah.
We think that we are only as good as what we can do for people.
I'm only as good as what I can do for people. Yeah. We qualify ourselves. We measure our worth based on our delivery and how pleasing we are to people, right? Which is why we feel so deconstructed when we're like, didn't I do good? We're literally like, didn't I do good? And people are like, I mean,
no cares.
Yeah, nothing. Like they have nothing to really demonstrate good job or reward you in some kind of way, right? So then we get caught in this cycle of doing and doing and doing more and adding more to our repertoire until we're completely spent. It's the absolute betrayal of self-preservation. So I would start there. I would start with reshaping perspective. I would start with understanding that your value is greater than the sum of one person's perception of you.
If I could drop the mic. I mean, wow. That's deep.
Yeah, it is. And these are things that I feel like we have to say out loud, right? I call myself the modern therapist because I'll say to my client, like, girl, I was in the bed the other day crying about nothing. Like we need to know that
it's not
me, Precious, the modern therapist, has had to sit with, I feel like I'm only as good as what I could do for people. Right? I think I feel like a indentured servant.
So I was going to ask you, how does this, just personally, how does this translate to your personal life in the sense of, because I can imagine the pressure from the outside looking in, the pressure of just having to deal with people unloading on you all day long, and then you having to respond to whatever they've given you. Yeah. And then also your friends, your family, everybody knows that you are Precious, the modern therapist. So you are supposed to have it all together and be happy and well balanced and all of the things. Yeah. How do you, is that pressure? Like, do you feel pressure or?
For sure.
How?
So you know, what I said earlier, we can be exceptional, but we're not that grand, right? So early on in my career, I had to really arrive at that understanding. I always say that all I can be is a drop in the bucket, right? But people have to collect many drops in their bucket until it fills up to change, right? So I don't seek to be the answer, in this absolute way. I'm just giving you my little nuggets. I'm just dropping in the bucket.
You don't put all that pressure on yourself.
I don't put the pressure on myself. Whenever you're ready, whenever you've collected whatever else you need to collect, that's when change is going to happen. If I'm like always thinking like, oh, what I said this time is going to make them, make that move, I will be stressed and depressed all the time.
I got another question. This is a personal again. How do you, if you have a client that you've been seeing for 6 months and y'all been working on this one thing, and every time she comes back, she's telling you the same thing. Because really I'm the friend, not only am I not the friend that like didn't think I had it, because maybe I have it, maybe it's a skill set I need to work on, but I'm also the friend that's like, sis, this ain't what we said. Like this is not, What are we doing here? I want for you what you said you wanted for you, and now I want it more than you want. Like, what's going on? How do you take your personal feelings out of it? Because this is their path.
Yeah.
How do you just offer wisdom from a place of no judgment? This is just, I'm just here to help you and support you.
So it's part what I just said. The no judgment piece is because I come from a perspective of every person is right around the corner from that thing that somebody else is going through that you might want to judge, right? You never know what is waiting for you around that corner. You never know what may happen. Depression, addiction, all of that can be right around the corner from you, right? So I just don't think I have the right to judge. I don't know what tomorrow may bring. But aside from that, we just have to understand that people have to get there. They just have to get there. Like what you just said. How do I want it more than you want? Because she don't want it. Because she don't want it. When people really want change, and I think maybe that's a part of what has helped me grow as a clinician, because I've seen the point where it clicks for people, and now
you're like,
really
okay, now you're ready.
Want it.
Yeah,
they really want it. Until then, I'm finna tell. You come in here and tell me to say, I'm finna tell you the same thing.
And you can recognize it now. You can recognize, okay, you're just not ready yet. We can still keep just going back and forth, but you're not ready yet.
You tell me the same thing, I'm gonna tell you the same thing. We're gonna keep on doing this dance until you're ready.
Gotcha.
Because sometimes that part of the process is absolutely a necessary part of the process.
To get
right?
them to...
They needed to do that dance, right? To be in a state of gridlock. Right? Stagnation. They needed to be there, right? Because them coming in that session is just one part of their full life story, right? They're in gridlock in every respect of their life. So they're feeling that discomfort all around, right? I'm not about to be a part of scolding you for what? Shame and guilt. Nothing grows from shame and guilt but more shame and guilt, right? I'm not going to be a proponent of shame and guilt. So we finna do this thing, right? I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give you compassion and grace every single time until you decide to give yourself compassion and grace enough to want to change.
So you mentioned affirmations and meditation. I know that is a big part of just your recommendations, period.
Yeah.
Even if you don't do therapy, you got to do something.
Yeah.
For a lot of us, the woo-woo thing, it's like, oh, I am a money magnet. I am beautiful. I am smart. And it feels silly because our parents, we weren't, some of us were not raised doing affirmations in the mirror.
Yeah.
So for people who have not yet figured out how to, I guess, make it make sense for them, do you have any suggestions for how you can make affirmations or meditation a part of your life?
Yeah. Well, first of all, find the woo-woo for you, okay? But there has to be some woo-woo. You just got to find the woo-woo for you. But there is a reason that affirmations has been one of those recommendations that has transcended time in the field of psychology, because they just simply work. We don't understand that we are being imprinted on all the time, and we're being conditioned and programmed all the time. So if you understand that affirmations is your ability to reshape and recondition and reprogram your own brain, right? We go out and we see billboards and we're remembering song lyrics that we didn't even know we liked the song, because there is a programming going on. So we know that repetition can help you absorb a new ideology. It just simply works. The thing is about affirmations is that people kind of go about it in a way that doesn't fully serve them, right? So we go online and we're like, I'm about to start affirmations. I'm going to Google some affirmations, and I'm about to start saying I'm powerful and I'm beautiful and all of these blanketed affirmations. What I suggest is you take inventory on the, see, I'm giving y'all free therapy, okay? Free therapy. You take inventory on the toxic thoughts that exist in your mind, then flip it and reverse it. And those are your affirmations. So then you speak directly to your aching, right? So I think that is a more intentional approach to affirmations. But the mindfulness piece, so I am a mindfulness instructor. I'm a huge proponent for mindfulness because it is a leading method for dealing with depression and anxiety.
Can you describe what mindfulness means?
So the way I explain mindfulness is being in the same place mentally where you are physically. whatever practices will allow you to do that. Because we really do, you know how they say we run on Dunkin'? Yeah, we probably do the caffeine and how it makes you anxious. We run on anxiety for real. We don't call it anxiety, especially in the Black and brown people. We say, excuse me, community, we say that we got bad nerves, right?
Make my nerves bad.
Make my nerves bad. Or we say that we're overwhelmed, or we use all of these other words, or we're agitated, or we're just nervous. No, that's anxiety, right? So we run on anxiety, and that means that your mind is essentially glitching because you are either in the past or you're in the future. You're not in the present. But when your brain can't access action items to be able to resolve whatever you are hyper focused on, it's going to start like spazzing, right? It's going to start glitching. That's what anxiety really is. But if you return into the moment, usually you can qualify your moment. You can find gratitude in your moment. You can find peace in your moment, right? So that's what mindfulness practices help you do. So it helps you return to the present. And a great way to do that is through meditation, stillness, rooting, grounding, all of these different practices that just allow you to tap into sensory information.
Whew. Free therapy, y'all. That was a real therapeutic session for your girl. Y'all gonna have to hit the replay on that one. Please let them know though if they need to get. So one thing we were talking about pre-show is that a lot of the services are being offered virtually now. So you do not have to be here in Atlanta to take advantage of your resources. So please let them know where they can find you online and on Insta.
So you can visit my website at www.moderntherapynow.com, spelled all the way out. You can find me on Instagram at @themodern_therapist, spelled all the way through as well. I also have a product line at shopjustbreathestore.com where you can get some products that will help you as a beginner meditator to start your mindfulness practices with candles and sage and crystals and you know,
all the things.
Types of
all the woo-woo for you.
All the woo-woo for you.
I have enjoyed this. This has been an amazing conversation that I believe is going to move the culture forward.
I hope so.
Now listen, y'all. This Sunday, April 10th, I am kicking off my 5-day Make More Money Challenge. If you are ready to find out how you can start creating intellectual property so you can get paid every day, you need to be in the building. The MakeMoreMoneyChallenge.com is where it's at. Peace out. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Entrepreneurs, I know you did not start that business so you could still feel broke. And I'm sure you did not become a CEO just to enslave yourself. Whether you realize it or not, employees are not the only ones living paycheck to paycheck. There are plenty entrepreneurs living project to project, sale to sale, and contract to contract. So if you want to find out how you can increase your cash flow so you can finally free up your time and enjoy the fruits of your labor, I need for you to join me April 10th through the 14th for the Make More Money Challenge. I'm going to teach you how you can turn every day into payday. I'll see you there. Hey girl, hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. This channel is all about encouraging you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified when the next video drops. And comment below and let me know what you want to see on the next video. Peace out.